I realized how motherhood was actually just left completely aside when moving abroad. It's like,
Welcome to Expats Everywhere. Can you tell us your name, where you're from, and a little bit about your expat background?
hello, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me over. Well, my name is Karina Lagarrigue, and well, I'm French, as you can tell from my name, but I was raised in the Canary Islands. My mom is French, and my dad is from Spain. So, but he's not from the Canaries, so we moved the three of us together to the Canaries when I was born. So I was born in Spain, where my dad is from, in the south of Spain, and then we moved to the Canaries when I was 3 weeks old, so I was really young. And then from there, we moved back again to Spain. So my middle sister was born at more or less the same place where I was born in the south of Spain. Then from there, I was moved again to France so that my mom could get a little bit of support. Because in Spain, like all the motherhood things is something that is very left behind because like in the society and in the culture, kids are taken care of by grandparents. But if you're an expat, you don't get to have many grandpas around. So my mom decided to go back to France to get some support during the first years of my sister and I, because we're really close together, we're only 20 months apart. So it was really hard for her. So there she got some support from the family and the system, because you also get some financial aid there that you don't get in Spain, or at least you didn't get at that time. So I was in France for a while, and then we moved to Portugal. When I was around 5, I was in Portugal for a year, and then my mom decided that life in the Canaries was far more easy and calm. They say everything goes smooth and slow. For my grandma, that's very, very like desperating and far too slow. Like everything is mañana, mañana. Everything is going to be left for tomorrow. But my mom thought that to raise kids that are so young, it was a lovely place to be. So I moved back there when I was 6, and I spent actually most of my life there. I then moved to Barcelona, where I'm right here at 17 for my uni. And then that's where my expat life and everything that is going to come up in today's interview started. I met my husband, that is Catalan, and we together moved to Belgium. And then in Belgium, I became a mom. And from Belgium, I became a mom, so in 2015 for the first time, and then for a second time in 2017. And when my second one was born, we moved to Ireland when he was only a few weeks old, a little bit like me, actually, if you think about it. It's a bit the same as me. And then last year, we finally came back to Spain just before COVID. So that's a little bit about me, like regarding all this expat world life that, well, you invited me to talk about.
Right, so you really have been an expat your whole life. 3 weeks, right? Since you first started moving around, and then you continued that with your husband. So let's focus a little bit on having kids not in your home country. What was that like?
Well, at the beginning, I thought it was going to be great because, well, it depends a little bit, and that's what my thesis comes from, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, is that at the beginning, I thought that, okay, so not being too close to my mom, that has very different way of thinking and doing things, was going to be kind of a safe place for me to grow as the mother I am, and not to be too much influenced by her way of doing things. But then you realize that actually being in a different country, where actually we were there just for a few, like, yeah, I got pregnant in August, and we were there like maybe for 2 weeks. So I had literally just a pregnancy to actually get to understand everything, like the system, the medical issues, the social aids, paperwork, everything. So when you are that young, I mean, like that very little time in a country before you become a mom, it's a whole package. Like you have to unpack everything, like you as a human being, as a wife, as whatever you are going to do there in the country in the first place, and then you as a mom or mom to be, and what is that going to look like, and all these other parts that if you're not going to be a parent, you wouldn't even think about looking into it. So it was a lot to take in, and I had the added like tricky part that my husband was studying an MBA. So it was a full-time MBA, and for people that know what that looks like, is very demanding, and they're not very much there to choose or do anything. So I was very much just left by myself. And that's something that expats face a lot, especially when you're just new in a place and you don't have anyone to ask questions. It's like you are left to yourself and finding all your answers. So it was quite of a challenge, especially with the first.
So that's really good advice, because I think a lot of expat moms, especially when they find out they're pregnant and they live abroad, it can be a very overwhelming thing. So the good thing to know is that they're not alone, and there are resources and help out there for those expat moms. And we'll get to that in a little bit, especially when we talk a bit about your thesis. So let's go ahead and move on. We talked about having kids in a different country. So you've been an expat mom now for several years. Your kids are older. What has that been like? What's that experience like?
But I must say that something I found out during my research for my PhD was about the TCKs. Not everybody knows about it, but it's something I realized I've been myself, and it's explained a lot about the way I am, the way I actually react, and I'm resilient to some very difficult situations. So I can't tell about what is that for anyone, like any kind of moms or expat moms, not yet. I'm working on my thesis to know a little bit where are like the similarities and the differences. But for me, it's been a great opportunity to show my children like that there are different ways of living, different ways of speaking, even because we are in different countries where they speak different languages. And for me, that is just a gift for them, especially if I'm able like to be there and accompany them throughout all the emotional different stages that you go through when you're moving around. But of course, it's also been like kind of challenging, especially for my husband that is not a TCK and had actually never moved abroad before. So we have been facing those difficulties regarding like the family relationships and meeting up and having that feeling that all our holidays would be to go back home just for the kids actually to get to know their families. And it's something that maybe if we didn't have children, we wouldn't have spent the same way, but it's something that definitely has kind of shaped the way we have arranged our lives around it, just because we are an expat family and we really care about our children having as much as an expatriated experience with abroad friends and things, but also to have some kind of a link with the family where they come from.
Okay, that's really interesting, because you're kind of caught a little bit of, like you said, the good thing is to teach them culture and language, and that there's more out there than just your home country. But then you also don't want to lose the family side of it, and you want them to know their grandparents and their cousins and all those extended family members. So that can be something that's difficult as an expat mom, just juggling those, giving your kid a great life in that sense, but then also not losing your roots, right?
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, so let's go ahead. We've talked a little bit about your PhD and your thesis. So I just want to know, I guess, you as an expat mom, how did that help you choose your PhD and your thesis? Like, why did you go this route?
So I'm a psychologist. I'm a clinical psychologist. So first I started working in Barcelona. So I did my degree in Barcelona, and then I started working with families here, but it went mainly like non-expat moms or non-expat families. I'm specialized in couple therapy. So I would see a lot of couples that would mainly be people from here, from Barcelona or the area. But then when I moved to Belgium, which is the center of Europe, and there you get to work with a lot of expat families, and I realized how motherhood was actually just left completely aside when moving abroad. It's like the people, like the husband mainly, because that's what I'm looking into for my thesis, and mainly is because of our husbands that we are transferred to one country or to another. So mainly in those process, like the person that is going to work gets some kind of training, even on the language where you're gonna go, and so that you get a little bit adapt to the culture, to the language, and a little bit of everything. But the wife and children that will come with him, they got nothing. And it's like, what? So I speak four languages. I speak French because I'm French from my mom's side. So I speak French, Catalan, Spanish, and English. So I could work mm, with families a little bit from different countries because I could speak English with the families that wouldn't speak any of the other three languages I speak. But I would have mainly Spanish-speaking families. Like at least one of them would be Spanish, and then the other one could be Belgium, German, English, or another nationality. But and there is when I realized, okay, so many of the wives would be, for instance, from Spain, and they wouldn't even speak English. They would literally just speak Spanish and maybe a little bit of English, like chit chat, like for very basic conversations, but no French, no Flemish. So what about all these daily tasks you need to go through, and maybe just finding people that don't even speak English, your little chit chat, and you actually need to speak the language. It was the same for me. I moved to Belgium, to the Flemish area, and I was, oh, but I'm safe because I speak French, right? And Belgium is bilingual, isn't it? No, they're not. No, they're not. And I had to deal with that because, okay, I said, okay, so now I'm in the Flemish part and they don't want to hear a word as French, so I'm going to have to use my English. But I had English, but that's not the case for every expat mom. So I realized, okay, so they left aside with the language issue, like is a great barrier when you get to the country to depend on your husband that might be like mine, working all day long. What do you do? What do you do? You can't even ask, okay, where do I take some French classes? Because you don't even get to say that. So it was like language completely left aside, like adaptation, emotional adaptation, like help to find some, I don't know, some support, even not even just for being a mom and motherhood, like just for you, like support because you're there and you're going to be completely left aside by your husband because he's at work, and you won't make any friends as easily because you're not at work many times yourself either. So how do you get to know people if you don't speak the language?
Right.
So this was something that really triggered me, like, okay, so they're just left by themselves, and you just find out. And then of course what happens? Then the couple gets into tensions, and that's when they come to me. But that's what I see as it's too late. There is no prevention, there is no preventive intervention or accompanying their whole family when moving abroad. And I said, okay, so we need to look into it deeper because there is a great need there.
That's so interesting because before we had this interview, I went ahead and I searched a little bit like on YouTube and online to see what's out there for expat moms. And there's really not much. And it seems pretty crazy because being an expat myself, you come across a lot of moms. And I'm a new mom, so this is new navigation for me as well. But like I've been around loads of expat moms, and it's crazy to think that there's just not many resources out there. So that's really interesting that you're digging into this and finding out more, and then hopefully getting those resources to people. Which moves me into the next question. How should an expat mom get plugged into the community? Like how do they navigate this?
So my best advice so far is that they need to show their vulnerability. That's the best thing I can tell you so far, is that if you just keep everything for yourself, and you just try to kind of tough it up, because some families are expats but they are still moving abroad for a need, like, and seeking for improvement economically. So what that means that they're leaving behind some families that will be considered in a much less good economical position. So they feel like, okay, so now I might have a great house compared to what my family have. I might have more resources compared to what my family have. So I shouldn't be complaining about anything. I just have to smile and answer over the phone saying everything is great. I'm great. Great, great, great. What is not at all what is going on? You're not great. You feel lonely. You feel sad. You feel homesick. There are many things that are actually going on. So I think it's very important for any expat mom, especially because motherhood also comes with a lot of loneliness, because you're just there exploring what kind of mom you're going to be, what kind of mom you're going to be in the context you are in, because it depends very much on what country you're going to go to. I was pretty lucky to end up being a new mom in Belgium, because the system itself is built to help you to become that mother, to support you, to give you actually some real help almost for free at home during the first week, just for you to get that time to rest, to deal with everything. But that's not the case in every country. You won't get that in Spain, for instance. So if you don't get all that support and all these things, it's important to at least let people know that you need it. Because if you just keep everything for yourself and try to tough up and say, I can deal with it, everything is fine, then nobody is going to know that you need help. So I would say go on social medias, just tell your closest friends. Sometimes some moms are already telling me, just tell anyone really. The first mom you meet at the playground, just tell them, hey, I feel alone. Can we chat? Can we do something? Is there anyone I can meet with tomorrow? Because that's what I need. Just let yourself be vulnerable.
Okay, so that's really great advice if you open up to other moms, because other moms are probably feeling this as well, but maybe a little scared to say something. So if we just kind of start speaking out a bit more, then it'll help, right?
Absolutely. That's the key.
Okay, so we want to go ahead and keep this interview fairly short because you're still working on your thesis and you're still gathering information. But if anyone wants to get in touch with you for your services, or if you need any help with the thesis information, which you can chat about that a little bit, how can people get in touch with you? And tell us if you need expat moms for your thesis or anything like that.
Absolutely. That's a great opportunity for my thesis. So thank you so much. I do need a great amount of expat moms. So my director is looking up to 100 expat moms. So I'm not there yet, as you might suppose. First, because as you will know soon, like the more you get into motherhood and traveling around, little time is left to actually dedicate yourself to something else, as a study, for instance. So there are many moms that might be willing to help me but might not have the time. So that's why, as many of you that do have the time and feel that can help, please do contact me, because I do need moms. Something else that I'm looking into in my thesis is a highly sensitive nervous system. So I'm looking into how these variables, like being a highly sensitive person or not, would actually affect the way you go through this process of motherhood as an expat. So I think it's also a great opportunity to learn more about it, because it's something a little bit new regarding psychology. So if you are interested into digging into highly sensitivity and you want to know a little bit more about expatriated motherhood, you can find me online, which is www.Lagarrigue, which is my family name, then a little dash, Psychologia with a P.com. Okay. And then you can also find me, so there you can find my email, and you can also find me on Facebook. I've created a very specific private group for expat moms that are in my study that might end up or not in my final thesis, because there is a very specific gap that I'm looking into, which are mothers with children aged between 0 and 7. So if your kids are not those age, they might be a little bit older, but you just want to get into a community and just get to learn a little bit more about what I'm looking into, you can also join it. And it's called Expats, Isolated, Highly Sensitive Motherhood. And there you will find this little community that I'm created and that I'm working with for my thesis. And finally, you can also find me over my phone if you are in Spain, for instance, or you have any of those very great advantage of being an expat sometime and being able to call internationally. Is 0034, that's for Spain, and then it's 669-645-620.
Okay, awesome. And we will put all of that information in the description as well. So Karina, thank you so much for telling us a little bit about being an expat mom and your thesis and PhD, and good luck with that.
Thank you so much for having me over, and I hope you continue interviewing many other interesting experts.